Yeah, I'm here to get the whole world into the tank. From the leaders in the UN to the heads of World Bank. Gonna get them all afloating so that they can stop the gloating. Make them turn off their showboat and stop the selfish self-promoting. Yeah, we're gonna spread floating to all the countries like it's a disease. Turn them into floatocracies. Soon the people will be begging for darkness. The starkness of a place completely void, empty and markless. They'll all be sitting around, having found that the sound of no sound is the most sound. That it's unappealing to be dealing with the feeling of feeling. To be reeling from the temperature the world is always stealing. So you get in the box, you take off your socks, you forget about clocks, you unlock your mental blocks. That's how we'll bring peace to every nation through the motherfucking power of flotation.
Cut a sheet of HTP, a top of sulfate of wet MG. From UV to PVC, we put in the work to earn a degree. Mag sulfate, heptahydrate, after hours to write the essay. BS to MD, don't forget the residency. Battle, we do not hesitate. We prefer to collaborate. A little bit of love, push and a shove, maybe a hug to participate. Drop an attempt to precipitate. Salt responsible for our fate. We woke in a dream, dungeon sea, attempting to levitate. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
This is Grant. Here's how I roll. Gonna go just like a float. Really slow, like a rowboat or a long stroll, or making dough, some bread dough, rolled out snow, or making snowmen in the snow, just like a float.
All right.
Hey.
That one was via audience request, so thanks for sending in that suggestion. I'm Graham. I'm Graham.
And I am Ashkahn.
And we are Daily Solutions Podcast.
Ignite.
We are winding things down, but we got one last big episode. Well, not one last. We have a few more episodes, but then also
one last big one.
A big.
The rest of these are going to be not even
pretty
really
much our only big episode ever. But we're doing a 2-hour live call-in show, November 29th,
3 p.m. until 5 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah, come join us. It'll be a blast. There's everyone that you know and care about is going to be there, so you'll really be missing out if you're the only one who's not. And in the meantime, we got a question to answer for you today.
Exciting.
Yeah, and it is,
what is it?
Other than claustrophobia. What are reasons that some people never get in to float? So yeah,
like they say, what are the things that people say they're like,
or that they don't say that we just know about their inner,
see it in their
inner
eyes.
psyches. Yeah.
Claustrophobia
is one.
Yeah.
Which I guess is why they excluded that in the question.
So really common things people will say when they're
water
like
sanitation.
Nervous.
I'm just going to say the next big one's water sanitation.
Yep, go ahead. Clearly you're ready.
Anyway, do you want to go into more depth on that? Or?
I think water sanitation is one that people bring up a lot. I mean, it's just you get asked all sorts of.
Well, you're hopping in that same water as the person before you, or what's going on there, huh?
Yeah, just like that. And variations on that sort of theme.
How do you know what people do in there?
And I found that while that is a concern that comes up a bunch, and even if people don't bring it up, a lot of people think. I mean, if you look at our Yelp and Google reviews, like cleanliness is mentioned like 9 out of 10 times or something, right?
So it's obviously top of mind for customers.
But what I found is that it's really like too easier than it should be to put people's fears at rest. Like you can pretty much answer them, and if you have an answer and you like sound confident, they're like, cool. Because I'll just say like, oh yeah, it goes through this filtration process where the water is pumped through this entire like crazy filter system with the UV and like hydrogen peroxide being added as this, and I'll like go in through it and make it sound kind of technical, and they'd be like, oh yeah, that really sounds like you know what you're doing, like.
Yeah.
And I bet I could be saying anything. Like, I bet it could be like, oh yeah, we use the reverse waterfall method to like, upend it through like our crazy straw filtration system.
Crazy straw. That sounds great. Yeah. My fears are allayed. And I will say there, and people will often give you some form of like, oh, that's cool. And then some of them will still never come in to float. Right. Like it's weird to be like, oh, cool. Well, I'm still concerned. So thanks for explaining that, but I'm not going to come in. A lot of people say that they're not, like even showing people tanks, they're like, oh, cool, that's not as small as I thought. And they still have claustrophobia and they'll never come float. Right. So it's kind of like the more that you can get these answers out really steadily, and you'll see this as we go over a few other objections, but, in your literature, on your website, kind of pre-address these concerns and really like make it so, like often for just human psychology, if we don't hear something repeated a handful of times, we tend not to really internalize it or believe it as much. So the more you can expose people to these common concerns and, again, address them before they even come in to ask you about it in person or give you a call is a really good strategy.
Yeah, because it makes sense, right? They see it there. They were probably thinking about it. Them seeing it lets them know that we obviously like know and care about it. I mean, I honestly feel like sometimes people ask us about sanitation expecting us to be like, oh, I never thought about that. You're right. Like, how is the water being kept clean?
You got me. You got me.
And like just the fact that I'm like, oh yeah, we have realized that that's a thing and we have a solution for it. No matter what we're saying it like makes people nod and go, okay, cool.
Yeah, so don't take advantage of that. It's a superpower that you must use for good and not evil.
And it's going to be the case with a lot of these. Like at the end of the day, in their eyes, you are like the grand float expert and
the grand float pooba.
Yeah, and everything you're saying is like extremely authoritative information.
What other concerns?
So the other one I hear all the time is I don't know if I could be alone with myself for that long.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And actually, like it's a very small percentage of people, but some of the small percentage that get out early and didn't really enjoy the float and probably won't come back have said my mind was just going, I'm the kind of go person, and I just like couldn't relax, which I think is the perfect candidate for someone who should absolutely try floating more until they can calm down. But like some of those fears are legitimate and they get in the tank and they kind of, their brain is going too fast. But it's such a small percentage. Way more people who are afraid of that are like actually in desperate need of a float, and their whole system will probably celebrate when they're actually thrown in the tank,
Yeah, and I think people are just, it's just the concept of it sounds freaky to be in like nothingness, and they think it's going to be like a drug trip where they're totally not in control and have no ability to, whatever. So I often find just explaining the setup even a little bit helps people in those situations. I'm like, it's in a private room. The door is just open and closed. There's light buttons on the inside, like
you can get out any time.
Yeah, like just painting a better picture than probably what they're imagining in their head is often pretty great.
Yep, and that ties into also that sounds scary, or weren't those used for torture? Kind of objection for why some people, unless they like actually get educated or seek out more information themselves, will probably continue to think, And just being like, no, like, do you think that, laying down in a warm bath by yourself with like dim lights is scary? Because if so, you should absolutely not hop in a float tank. Like this is way too intense for you, But,
Yeah. I'll tell people too, like another thing I've found that seems to help is I'll mention to people that I think this goes in the same world as like, do people ever freak out in there? Mm-hmm. Is it kind of along the same vein, right? And I usually mention to people that like everything that's going on in there is like telling your body to chill out.
Yeah.
Like this is just an environment that is literally like convincing your brain that this is like the chillest you should definitely be. So it's actually like almost chemically difficult like to have a like freaky experience in there. Like you're not even primed with what's happening in your body to be able to have freaky kind of panicked experiences for the most part.
Yeah, and they do, again, extremely, extremely rare that they happen, and certainly not to the level that people should be concerned about it. We're talking about 1 in 10,000 floats or, maybe a little less, but still in the thousands,
So I found that to kind of make people go like, oh yeah, interesting. And like that changes their objections a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Another one is just I don't have enough time.
Right.
I definitely hear that. And,
Yeah.
That's an objection to not just floating, but a lot of things for personal care that people probably should have in their life. And
Yeah.
my favorite answer to that came from the yoga industry, but adapted to floating. It's if you don't have an hour or an hour and a half to float, you should probably float for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, like they definitely are the people who need it the most.
Yeah.
For us, we have specifically a really great response, which is that we're open 24 hours a day. So, like, it's just such a good comeback. People are like, oh, man, yeah, I've been really busy. I don't know if I'd have time for that. I'm like, we're open 24 hours a day. So, like,
This is on you, buddy.
Yeah, like you have to, there has to be a time that fits into your schedule. We're literally open around the clock.
Yep.
I've gotten, my grandmother was betrayed by a float tank, and our family has taken a vow to avenge her, and as a result, we've disbanded from all float activity for generations.
Yeah. In which case, point out that vengeance is a circular cycle and the float tanks will strike back, probably in greater force than before. Perhaps making peace is the better option.
So check, that one usually solves it.
Yeah. Yeah. If I'd say once a week for something like that. We're talking about common objections, right? That's honestly, there's more and there's little ones and the answers like sometimes differ, but basically fall into this category of people can come up for all sorts of reasons not to do something that they're kind of nervous about. So your goal with all of these,
fueled by that.
Yeah, your goal with all of these is really to make them understand that floating is not scary or intimidating. It's actually way more similar to other things they've done, like get a massage or be in a warm bath or be in a hot tub, even though we're at neutral temperature. And just making it more relatable and accessible, I think often, even though that's not what they're telling you, often takes care of whatever concerns they are bringing up. It's kind of like trying to get to the root cause rather than just addressing the symptoms.
And there's certainly a certain amount of social proof that helps in all these situations. Like I found quoting how many floats we've done in almost any of these answers. Like if someone's like nervous about, claustrophobia, which I guess we're not supposed to be talking about in this episode, but I'll say something like, we've done 90,000 floats and like we just don't get people coming out and saying they felt claustrophobic or just throwing those big numbers out there makes people go like, oh, this is not just like some little thing, like clearly lots of people are doing this. Or even just having a shop that's on like a busy retail foot traffic street, like we pay more for that because we felt like it felt more like we were a real business, and that gave us this inherent like credibility that made people more trustworthy of thinking that these things were legitimate.
Again, use that power for good and not evil. But yeah,
having a nice looking website, like all this stuff is making people realize like, hey, if this is a successful business, that must mean people are coming in to do this, which must mean it's an enjoyable experience, right? Like there's kind of this inherent logic that exists there that I found is really helpful. So especially if you're hitting a lot of resistance before you've opened your business, this is one of those things that gets easier once your business is open. Because just existing as a business is proof that you're not crazy to be telling people to go and to float. So that's another thing that's really nice and gets easier over, we've been open 8 years now, and like that alone lets people know that obviously this is not some sort of crazy
panicky. You have an alternate source of income coming in somewhere, All right, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah.
Getting down to the final few episodes and then our big live show.
Yeah, final episodes. Big liver. Yeah.
Thanks for the contribution over there. Tune in the 29th, 3 to 5 p.m.
Pacific time.
Yeah, you got it. We'll see you there.
All right, bye.
Bye, everyone.